Okay, welcome back to podcast 15, and this is part two of our previous lab where we've been we went through a journey of the IoT data stream that went from IoT device to IoT core. Then we created the rules and we stored them in S3. So now, what's left of the story of this is story tale, we will mobilize other services, cloud services, AWS, of course, which will be Lambda and DynamoDB. Both of them are crucial, and we'll discover them with Malek in this part two of this lab. Yeah, please, Malek.
Yes, so hello everyone, and welcome back to podcast 15. So, as it was already mentioned, this is part two, and we are going to continue the journey. So, in part one, we stopped at the S3
This is our
stage.
bucket.
Yeah,
Yes,
in the
our
S3
bucket, right?
bucket. So we created a
Mm-hmm.
bucket, and in that bucket, we stored our JSON files
Mm-hmm.
after, of course, applying the rule. So now what we're going to do is trigger a Lambda function. So this put action will trigger a Lambda function, and in the code of the Lambda function, we are going to put the data in the DynamoDB NoSQL
Mm-hmm.
database in AWS. So
Can
let's
you
just
Yeah, Mela, can you show us those files which we stored in a bucket list? I can
Yeah,
see the
that's what I
bucket
was
on
gonna
your
do right
left.
away.
Okay,
Exactly.
great,
So let's
great.
just have a look quickly at where we stopped last time. So I just prepared here the um,
In our bucket,
the
yeah,
window,
this
yeah,
is our
to
bucket.
see our bucket. So
And we
our bucket was called
timestamp.
IoT Data Podcast 15 bucket, and yes, the ID was timestamp if you all remember. And in the last run of our code, we sent three messages,
Mm-hmm.
and they were stored here in the IoT Data Podcast 15 bucket. And now we're going to move forward and see what we should do next. So the next part is to create a Lambda function that will be triggered by this put action in the S3 bucket. So let's go
Okay,
together and create our Lambda function. So we can go back to our console and search Lambda.
okay.
And then
So
you go here to create function.
this is the main interface of serverless service, which is Lambda function. So we give a name to the Lambda function, right?
Well,
Uh,
let's say
yeah, this is
IoT
yeah
data
IoT dot yes.
podcast 15 Lambda.
Lambda. Yeah, good name.
And then you can choose your runtime. So this is the the
Let's stick to
the coding
Python, I
language.
guess,
You
right?
can choose whatever you want. Exactly, we're going to go with Python, but you have many other choices. You
Choice,
can go
right?
with whatever works for
Several,
you.
yeah.
And then we're going to leave everything else as default and create our function.
So it's creating our function, and here is the interface now. Okay.
Exactly. So this is the interface that you get once you create your function. So you can see that your
Mm-hmm.
function was
I can
created
see the
here.
ARN of the function, yes, and I
Yeah, you have the
okay,
array of a function, which is basically the address of your function. This can be
yeah,
useful when you want to give permissions to only this Lambda function. So you can use
yes,
that.
yeah, among others, yes.
Mhm.
And
And
now let's see the code. Let's see the code. What do we have here?
so in the code, you just
Okay.
have like a very quick script that was
Yeah,
prepared
this is
for you.
yeah, simple.
Of course, we're
I
going to modify it, but this
yeah.
is what you get by
So,
default.
what do you suggest? Should we start with the triggering this lambda from S3, or just copy, or just use the test with a JSON format file just to test the our lambda function? What do you suggest?
Sure, before doing the trigger and adding S3 here as a trigger and sending actual MQTT
Aha,
messages, we can test our Lambda function and see what happens here once we send an event. Obviously, we're going to do it manually.
great.
We are going to be sending the event,
Let's
the
see this.
messages, not the IoT device, but we can just do a simple print event.
I can see
And
you are assisted by Amazon Q assistant here whenever you
exactly,
are.
as you can see, Amazon
It's
Q
amazing.
will help you with your code. You can actually even write a comment, and Amazon Q will
We'll
see it
develop
as
the
a
code.
prompt. Exactly, Amazon Q will see it as a prompt and give you the
Fine.
code. Yeah,
That,
so it's very helpful. We're going to see how it works later on when we write more code. So
good.
once you modify your function, you should always remember to deploy.
What's about the test? Did we put the information to print or
Of
what
course, we're
exactly?
going to do that right away. So,
Yes.
well, I think that I'm going
You
to
can send an information here or copy the one you
I'm
have
gonna
in your
send an
notebook.
information here. No,
Yes.
sorry, this is not what I was supposed to do.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to open a new terminal here, and I'm going to run my code just to get a quick example.
A
Um,
simple payload, just to copy and paste. Yes. And you
exactly,
will
just to
get
get an
another
example of
file.
what a device would send.
So
So I'm
this
going
is
to
our
copy this,
payload.
and this is going to be my test.
Test.
So to test, you go
So
here to
yeah,
the test tab. You can name it whatever you want. I'm going to name it test.
for example,
And then
yeah.
over here, you can put
Ah,
your event.
yes.
So there's going to be a
Yeah.
JSON event. Always remember to put double quotation marks for
Okay. This is very important. It should
all
be
of the keys and the
already you have
values.
format JSON here. If it's not well formatted, it will not be accepted by the Lambda function. Yes, absolutely right.
Definitely. So don't hesitate to actually stick
Yes,
to the
to
JSON
the
format
rule.
so
Yes,
that it
JSON format.
works.
So
Okay,
house,
so we
and we
have
keep
both
the value
double
as it
quotation.
is. Good.
And then we're gonna come up here and save.
Yes, and you
And
can.
the test was saved, and then we can test. And then you can see
It's
here in the
green.
logs, you can
So
see the
execution
details.
succeeded.
And then you can see that our
Yes,
message or the message we entered manually is being printed here. So basically, we're printing the event.
this is the print event. Okay. This is a
Yes,
good example to start with the Lambda function. Yes. Okay.
definitely. So let's go back
Okay.
to our Lambda function and test it this time with the MQTT messages. So as we already mentioned, let's go back to our scenario quickly here. This Lambda function will be triggered by S3. So we
Yes.
should come back here to our Lambda function and add trigger. And here we're going to select a source. The source here is a AWS service. Here we're going to choose S3.
S3.
And then you should
Yes.
specify which bucket is supposed to trigger this Lambda function. Our bucket is the IoT podcast-15 bucket.
So we have to
That's the bucket.
specify a specific bucket which will trigger our Lambda function. This is very important.
Yes, this is the bucket where our
So
JSON files are
what's
being stored. The event type is what kind of action in this Lambda, in
yeah.
this bucket is going to trigger the Lambda.
I can see a bunch of events here like put, post, copy, delete, etc. So here
Exactly.
which option will we will keep here?
So here's going to be a simple put. So any
Yes,
put action
great.
that's taking place in our bucket will
Yeah.
trigger our Lambda function.
So
So
every put will trigger our Lambda function. This is the translation of what you have done. Every put, every upload of a file will trigger Lambda function. Good.
exactly,
We
exactly.
have
And
no
then you
prefix.
have to you have to tick this box here because if you are putting, if a put is going to trigger your Lambda function and the destination is the same
Yeah, it will go
S3
through a
bucket,
loop.
let's say, it's going to be going through a recursive loop and it's
Yeah.
going to cause increased costs. So make sure
Yes.
your destination and your trigger are either two different buckets or two different AWS services. So you should
Yes.
tick this box here so that you can move forward. And once we've done all of that, we're going to add the trigger. So as you
Yes.
can see here,
So
our
it's
trigger
simple here. So
is
we
being
triggered our Lambda
started.
function through these simple options we set up here with a trigger. Wonderful.
Okay, so once our Lambda function has been created and our S3 trigger as well, and we've done a few tests, we can move on to the MQTT messages part. Before doing that, always go to configuration, general configuration, and make sure here that a timeout of 3 seconds generally is not enough for the MQTT messages to be sent to IoT Core, the rule to be applied, for them to be stored in the S3 bucket, and for them
Yeah.
to trigger the Lambda function. 3 seconds is a
So
bit too
you
short,
have to
and this
adjust.
will...
So you have to adjust the time. Sometimes because you are working with the near real time MQTT message, and you have to adjust it. So you are putting 10 seconds instead of 3. Good. Let's try this.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay,
So the invocation here can take 10 seconds. Yeah, okay. Okay.
yeah. So let's go ahead and test our print event. So we're not changing our code. No need to deploy it again. We're going to send a few MQTT messages. Let's send around 2.
Pressure here. You have 2 messages. Let's check the invocation first. Can we see the monitor of our Lambda function? Yeah, I guess we
Sure,
can
let's
see
go
it.
to the monitor
Monitor,
tab,
yeah,
go to
yeah,
view CloudWatch logs, and refresh and choose the last log stream.
yes.
So let's refresh and choose the
And
last log stream. And this is going to
oh,
print both of the
yes.
events. This is the first event, which was
And the
generated by
second
the first
event.
IoT device or the
And the
first
second.
message. And this is
Already we
the
can see,
second.
Malak, we can see your file name, your file, timestamp file. I can see it. This is .json.
The
Can you just
key.
highlight it
Exactly. This
there?
is the key that contains, or the name of the file that contains the data.
Can we extract them, Malak, and the name of the bucket and the name of the key? Can we extract them
Of course, that's what
on?
we're going to do in
Yeah.
a second. So as you can see, it's basically like a dictionary. So you need to go from key to value to key to be able to get to the key part that's
So
going to allow us to...
can you highlight where do we go from? We go from record, I guess. Can you
We go
highlight the
from
record?
records, yes,
Then
and
I guess S3
then
later.
we're going to go to S3, and then we're going to
Yes.
go to bucket,
Bucket. Then key. I guess for
object,
the yeah,
and
bucket
key.
will get the name and object to get the key. Yes,
Exactly, of
absolutely
course.
right.
We need the name of the bucket to locate our key or our file, our JSON file, and then from the bucket we're going to get the key
Get our
from
key.
object.
Oh, yes.
Exactly.
Yes,
Exactly.
straightforward.
So
It's
let's go
clear.
ahead and do all of this. So we come back to our Lambda function. We go to the code tab and we continue coding. Of course, Amazon Q is going to help us. So now we want to access... Well, first of all, we're going to need import Boto3 that will allow us to access the different AWS services. So we're going to access the S3 bucket.
Yeah, it's
So
helping you.
we're
Yeah.
doing an instance over here of
This is our
S3.
client. Yes.
Exactly. And then we will need to find
The bucket.
find the
Yes, okay.
bucket. Find the bucket's name. Yes, we need to find the bucket's name. So, well, yeah, well, he helped me with that, but yeah. So we go to event records, and then from there's a list in records. So here's the list in records, and from that list we are going to go to the key S3, then bucket, and then name, and that's where we're going to find the name of our bucket, which is this one.
Okay.
And then we are going to
Can we get the key as well?
Yeah, get key. So this is key name, of course, why not?
It's already here.
So this is the name of our file. So from object we go and get the key. So from object we get the key, which is the name of the JSON file.
Yeah, yes. Now we would like to extract the content of the key, I can see. So you are going, would you like to print the bucket and the key, or you would like to extract the information you sent now? Okay.
We're going to extract the content of the key right away.
Yes, absolutely right. So S3 object key. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then
Yeah, so we got the bucket name, so we're going to put the bucket name and key,
yeah,
and
there.
then print, basically. Yeah, we need to decode. I think we need to get the body.
Decode, yes, yeah, we have
Yeah,
to
well,
decode
we
this.
can
This is the
print
body.
object to see what it contains, but in object is also going to be like a dictionary that contains
You
different
can
keys
do
and
it.
values.
Yes,
Exactly, and in the body key, we need the body key contains
to read
the
and decode. Yes.
the content of the file, and then we need to decode it to be able to read it, and then
Let's
we
print the
just
body.
print body. Yeah.
Can we get
So
rid of that print event to make the
sure, no
output,
problem.
yes, more yeah, readable? Yes, it's okay. Yeah, I
Sure.
guess you have your payload.
We need to
Yeah, okay, let's
deploy.
deploy and see this.
Let's deploy. And
It's
before sending the messages, we need to modify the permissions. So over here, what we're doing is basically we're
okay.
asking this Lambda function to read the
The
content
file. To read the
of a
file
file in an
uploaded in
S3 bucket.
yes. So you
Yeah,
have to get the permission to read this. Absolutely right.
definitely.
So
Definitely. So we're
I
going to
guess
go to configuration in the
yeah,
same interface, Lambda interface. Then we go to permissions,
permission,
and then
yes,
we
and
click here
you
on
have a role
role
there.
name, and then we go to, so you can see that our Lambda
This
function
is
already has a permission. We're
yeah,
going
this
to
is
go to
execution
create
role.
inline policy.
Yes.
Service is S3, and then
Uh
we want to read.
yes. So
So let's
it
look for
either
it.
use inline
Get
or
or read, probably.
no. I suggest that you use the AWS read full read. It's better. Or yeah,
I
all of
can't
them.
find the read.
Yeah. No, you have get object here. Get object. Yeah. Okay. Get
There
object.
we
Yes,
go.
this. Yes, there's get object.
There are way too many, so a simple Control F can help you find the rule that
And
you're
I
looking for.
guess you need as well get at just a moment get object. This is the yeah. Let's try this because you have instead of inline you have to add a permission read full. It's better, but go ahead. Okay,
Here you can
let's try this.
specify the RN of your of the Lambda function that will have this permission, or you can keep it as all, which is you can just find the RN or keep it as all. We're
Any
gonna keep
any
it as
source,
all,
any
but
source, any
exactly,
resource.
but
Yes.
it's better to always specify the address or the RN of the
Okay, let's see
service.
this.
Okay, there we go. So we created the policy. Now we can go
Yes.
and run a few tests. So let's send a few messages.
So we are sending MQTT message again from IoT virtual IoT.
We
Let's
go back to
see what we will
CloudWatch
have. Yeah, fresh.
and go to this
This is
last
the
one. And as you can see, we have the content.
yeah. So you are extracting all information here.
So you have a device 5 and a device 2. Let's
This
just
is
make sure it's the
amazing.
same. A device 5, device 2, temperature, pressure, both are in warehouse 3. So you have
This
temperature,
is
pressure, both are in warehouse 3. So
this
yes,
is
it
really
worked.
straightforward. In a few minutes, you manage to get the content of MQTT message sent by IoT. Yeah. So what should we do with this information right now?
Yeah, so let's go back to our schema to see what we should do next.
Yes.
So this is where we're landing. We're in the Lambda step. So the last step is, instead of printing this information in our CloudWatch log, we
Hmm?
would like to store it in DynamoDB. So that's what we're going to do now.
which is a no SQL database. Of course, we have to mention this.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
yes, okay. Let's put this MQTT message in a table within a DynamoDB. Okay.
Yeah, so we go back to the console, DynamoDB. We go to create table, name your
Okay.
table. So we're gonna name it my IoT data podcast 15 with the partition key. So the
Okay.
ID of each and every entry is going to be, we're gonna name it ID over here.
Yes. Yes.
And
So this ID will be something that will play a role of category, let's say, or which make the access of our content within the data table easier. So that will
exactly,
be,
it's a
yeah, that's
unique ID, just like we chose earlier in our
timestamp.
rule, we chose timestamp exactly. So
Yes,
here
I
as an ID,
think.
we can actually use the key, so it's going to stay timestamp, or we can generate unique IDs for
Unique ID.
every
Yes.
exactly. As long as it's unique for each and every message,
Yes.
it should work.
Okay,
So that's our
so
partition
this is
key. We're
our
going to keep it as
table.
string, and we're
It's a
going to keep
string, yeah.
everything as its default. Create table. And our table was created here.
It's
Well, from
creating, yeah.
now, right away, I can see that there is a mistake in what we did. So basically, we're in United States, North Virginia, and everything
Mhm.
else we created was in EU North, so in Stockholm. And this is going to cause an issue. You should always keep the same region for all AWS services that you're creating. So this wouldn't work. We need to delete this and create a new table. So we're
Yeah,
gonna do
at
that
least for
very
this,
quickly.
yeah, at least for this kind of triggering, you will have to keep them in the same region. But we have other RDS, for example, which can span many regions, yeah, across region, like Aurora maybe. But here, yeah, it's very important to stick to the same region. You are still in North Virginia, by the way.
Mm, I was
You are
going to
still in
change
North
it.
Virginia.
Yeah, it's going to reload.
Yes, now you are in Stockholm. Okay. So creating a table and the partition as well. Partition, we call this ID, we keep it as string, and we create the table. Okay. Now it's time to go to Lambda function and configure this.
Sure, so now it's creating. Let's let it create and take its time.
Yes.
And while it's doing that, we're going to come back to our Lambda code and continue coding. So here, we would not we don't want to print the content of the file anymore, so I'm going to remove that. Right now we would like to place the content in a DynamoDB DB table. So right away we're going to go and do the same thing we did here with S3. We're going to use Boto3 to get the resource, so it's DynamoDB.
So this
Then
is
we're
a
going to need to
client.
get the name of our table, which is IoT Data Podcast
Yes.
15. I'm gonna make sure that it's actually the
It's
right.
my IoT, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
it's
doesn't have underscores. It actually has
okay.
dashes.
You just
So
replace
this
here.
is
It's
the
okay.
correct table.
Yeah.
And then we're going to put. So the next part is put. Yeah, sure. And put
What's
item.
about the ID? Your
The
ID,
ID
you should.
is the key,
So
I think here,
yes,
or we should name it ID because that's what we chose
yes,
as
yes.
when we
The
created
ID
our
is the
table.
key.
But it's the
Ex
key, but the name of the column
it's good.
should be
This is
ID. Should
this
keep
is
it the
good.
same.
This is a timestamp, and it's a good ID. Yeah, it's a good partition. Yeah. Okay. So you have the key, you have the body, and you are putting. This is your item. So.
Sure. We should
Mhm.
deploy.
Okay.
Make sure that it's successfully updated. Okay, it is. So
Any
let's test.
permission? any permission to
Sure, of
let our Lambda
course,
put something in DynamoDB? No?
of course, yes, of course. We should
Mm-hmm.
go back to permissions. That's correct.
Can we test without the permission and see that denial, please? Can we get this kind of error? I mean, if you deploy, or you deployed it already. So
Sure,
if
I
we,
deployed it. We can see that we actually will
yes,
get an error if we
just
don't
send a
give the
simple
permission.
message. Yes, and
And
let's go to CloudWatch and see this. Yeah, I am eager to see this. It's very important. Yeah, refresh here. Yeah. Okay. Ah, you have an error. Yes, I like this. Yeah.
request, yeah.
Yeah, you
No,
have an error.
it's here.
Yeah.
Sorry, here.
Yes, and you have access denial exception. You have an access denial exception, and which
Exactly.
is, and it's related to table put item. It's not allowed.
Exactly.
Okay. Yes.
Exactly.
And the
As you can
message
see here.
is clear. Okay, this is good. Let's go and put this permission. So now you will
We
create
can create
inline policy.
inline.
Yes, same thing. Yes, for a DynamoDB table. And this is right. Yes, absolutely. And we have this
Just
put item.
put item.
Yes, I think, yes, here we can make it all clear enough. Can we just, yeah, you give a name to this role, to this policy, yes. It's a policy within a role. And when you create, we have our policy here. Let's click on the policy and check what's inside exactly. So it's DynamoDB put item. So we are allowed only to put data, I mean, within this table only. Yes, clear enough. So we go back and try again.
Okay, so let's send a few MQTT messages and see if they're going to be placed in our DynamoDB table. So let's send maybe just 2 messages. And let's go over here to our DynamoDB table. We run and
check, check events. Yeah. 2, yes.
It should be this one.
Yeah. Is there any error there? Yes. Validation exception. Yes, you have a validation exception here because it needs a decimal. You need a conversion to decimal. Yes. So yeah, you have to update this, right?
Okay, so let's modify this part. We should obviously do the decimal conversion, and also for the timestamp, we're going to use event time. That's in the event records. So we're going to first of all load the JSON file. There you go. So as you can see, should go, yeah, like this. We load the JSON file and then we add the timestamp.
Yes, absolutely. Add the timestamp from event. Exactly. Yes, you already have the. Yes.
Yeah, but I think in our Dynamo table we call it time.
Time. Check if it's capital letter or small letter. Just
yeah, I think it's.
Yes, right.
Yeah, so it's
time. Yeah, good.
So yeah, now we have the event time, so the exact time at which.
So we have to convert. Now we have to convert. Since DynamoDB doesn't accept the integer values, float values, yes, this is exactly what you need. Yes. All right, absolutely. And
everything.
All the messages within DynamoDB table. Exactly. Perfect.
There we go. We are going
Perfect.
to
To
deploy
deploy, yes,
now.
and check.
And then we're going to go back to our code and send a few messages again and see if we're going to see them appear in our DynamoDB table. Let's send 3. Okay, that should be enough. Now we're going back to our DynamoDB table, explore items, and then we run.
And
as you can see,
here are your
we
messages.
got our data.
Perfect. Can you check our
CloudWatch?
our CloudWatch, exactly.
Sure, yes. So let's go back to our CloudWatch. I'm going to check, refresh here to get the last event. And as you can see, well, here we're getting the print that we already
Exactly.
wrote
Perfect.
before, but now we don't have any issues or any errors. We just have
Yes.
information about the duration of the execution of the
Perfect.
code. So
Perfect.
yeah, it's all good.
Yes. So let's go back to the schema we start with.
Of course, sure. So, well, we're going to summarize what was done in part 1 and part 2, and that concludes the whole scenario. We started with a virtual IoT device or multiple virtual IoT devices that were sending MQTT messages to IoT Core, AWS IoT service. And then from IoT Core through message routing, we using rules. So rules were just SQL statements that allowed us to retrieve the information we wanted from all the data that was being sent by our IoT devices. These rules then put the results of the SQL statement in an S3 bucket, and upon this put action, a Lambda function was triggered. And this Lambda function basically just takes the JSON files stored in the S3 bucket and places them in a NoSQL table, which is the DynamoDB table from AWS.
What is really amazing in this lab, Malek, is the quantity of coding. I mean, the time we are spending in coding is not that much long. I mean, if you go back, for example, if you go back to our Lambda function, please, would you like to display the code?
Sure, it's just a few lines. It's like
it's few lines.
41 lines, and there are spaces, but if you remove the spaces, it's going to be very.
So you are collecting your JSON format message, MQTT message, and just and to enrich the message with time, which is available within the CloudWatch event, which is the result of the S3 triggering of our Lambda function, sorry. And then we just put all together within a message and store it in the table. So yes, with this, we come to the end of this lab. And next lab, what do you suggest, Mara?
In the next lab, we can do many different things. We can include SNS to get messages or emails or even SMS messages sent to our device whenever there is any event taking place. We can choose the event, obviously. The SNS message can also send us the message and also do what we just did now, store the information in DynamoDB through a Lambda function. We can also go look at data brew. We can do so many things. We can look at glue. We can see how to store this in time stream. So yeah, there are many different things. And then we can go to QuickSight as well and see how we can present this data visually. So yeah, so many different scenarios are waiting, and
thank you, thank you, Malek. We have really
it was my pleasure.
Tons of services we have to go through, and it's always a pleasure to make this available for our audience and let them prototype their project and go ahead to fulfill their dreams. Thank you, Malek, and arrivederci. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Goodbye.
Bye.
طب يمشي
صحة بقاتي
الستريمينج cette fois.